Hi, this is the module Dashboards within DataMiner Configurator Level 2. Within this module, we'll take a closer look at how to create a more elaborate dashboard. I say a more elaborate dashboard because we already created a dashboard within the fundamentals part. But it was a very basic one, a very small one. We didn't use a lot of features, so it was kind of low level, and we want to take it to the next level within this module. So here we will create a bigger dashboard with more components and more dynamic behavior, user input, GQI, linking things together. So we will use a lot more features and go a little bit more in depth on what the possibilities are and how to create those dashboards. So what we will do first of all is we will create a brand new dashboard, a blank canvas, and we will add our visualizations and our data on there to start with those building blocks again, but give you a little bit more details about that. We will also add some more data from the user to make it more dynamic. Our dashboard involves some GQI. GQI stands for Generic Query Interface. It allows you to query the DataMiner system in a very flexible way with some kind of SQL kind of like queries. So we'll take a look at that. And then we'll touch upon those components and the security a little bit more in detail. So the exercises, demos will be going while we are going through those different steps. We will add examples, create dashboards, and do some demos and exercises on the go. Okay, so first things first, we need to create that brand new dashboard. So as we've seen before, when we go to the dashboards, we have our panel on the left-hand side with all the existing dashboards and folders in there. So you can use the right click to create new folders, to create a new dashboard. So we'll create a new one, specify a name for my dashboard, and then we basically have our blank canvas. Next to the name, you can specify the location as well. So if you right-click somewhere on a folder, it will already be immediately in that folder. Like here, we right-clicked on the servers folder, so it's immediately in that location. But you can further tweak it by clicking on there. And the security. So the security, here we have the 3 levels indicated. By default, a dashboard will be created public, meaning that everybody that has access to the DataMiner system is able to access your dashboard, to view it, but also to change it. So maybe you want to close that down a little bit, then you can go for the protected. They can still see it, they can still use your dashboard and consult it, but they can no longer edit it, and you are the only person that can change the dashboard. So they need to get back to you to further modify it, and you are basically the owner of it, you could say. You can also go for full private, meaning that nobody will be able to see it even, so they cannot change it, but they can also not see it. So it's only for yourself. We'll come back to security because you can make it a little bit more advanced in who can see and change things. That's for later. So when we create that new canvas, I also want to mention that within the details panel on the right-hand side, you do have some layout options there. And we do have a theme which is by default selected. There are a couple of different themes you can just click on there and choose between a light and a darker theme. But you can also just go for new theme, and then you have the editor to specify your own look and feel. So in there, you can give it a name, but the background color you can change, the font, the style on the border, the spacings, all of these things, you can change that to give it your own look and feel as well. So think about that. Now, let's immediately dive into that. So I'll be working on our training system. So within Skyline Academy, I do have my demo system here. You might have access to a training system. If not, you can spin up a DAS, or you might have your own system. So I go to the homepage of my demo system, and there we can find the Dashboards app. If I launch the Dashboards app, we will see on the left-hand side the possibility to select a folder or to create a new dashboard in there. So we can see there are a couple of folders, there are a couple of dashboards. Within those folders, there are some dashboards. I'll ignore whatever is on there. I'll create my own new dashboards here on the fly. If you want to create a new folder, you can right click. So I'm right clicking and creating a subfolder under Thomas, or create a new dashboard there. But I want to create my own new folder. So I'll go for the three dots in the upper section there to go for a create folder, and I'll give it the name training. And it's just underneath the root. Yes, it's a public folder. Okay. Oh, create. Yes. So this folder is now available for everybody, and I'll create that new dashboard in there, our first dashboard. So I go for right click, create dashboard, and give it the name training Bert. Or maybe I should already give it something like server overview to give it a little bit a nicer name. So I'll be working with some Microsoft elements there. Okay, server overview. It's in the training location. That's perfectly fine. And I go for public so that everybody can leverage my dashboard, and they can also edit it if they would like to help out with me to improve this dashboard later on. So let's create it. And it will create a blank canvas for me, and we will be able to start adding some stuff on there in just a moment. Like I mentioned, you can go to the layout. In the layout, you have the possibility to change the theme if you would like to go for a dark theme, for instance. So by default, it's the gray theme. And if you want to create a new one, you have that theme editor with all the things like borders and spacing and colors and fonts and titles and all of these things. You can play around with that and make it something nice. That's something to play with. I think that speaks for itself. If you want to choose fonts and colors, go ahead with that. I'll go for a default theme here. Okay, so let's go back and now first look at adding a little bit of the first content again onto my system. So therefore, we have the visualizations and the data sources that we need to bring together from the left and the right hand sides. So on the left hand side, we do see our visualizations. So if you move your mouse over that section, it opens up and you have all the visualizations. On the right hand side, you have the data. You need to combine those two together in the middle section, basically. There are two approaches of doing that. You can start from the visualization, or you can start from the data side. Let me first start from the visualization side as indicated here. Then I need to drag something on there, and then I need to add some data on there. So let's do that and play with that like we did already previously, but I'll give you a little bit more details to that. So on the left hand side, we can find all our different graphical presentations. Let's just go with the basic one for the state of an element that I will add on there. So I say always drag and drop. That's indeed possible, but you can also just click on there. And if you click on there, it already adds it somewhere, and then you can move it. You can move it around, and you do have that grid to make it bigger, smaller, maybe make it a little bit wider, etc. So that's my name of my server that will be prominently available on the top of my dashboard, you could say. So you can move that around, make it a nice position. So you can just, as I said, click on it or drag and drop this on your canvas. Now I need to add and link this to some data. So on the right hand side, I have all the available data in my DataMiner system. Some of the data might not be applicable for you. So if you don't use any bookings, then that's not really relevant. The most basic ones are, for instance, elements, parameters, and you also have here at the bottom views as well. So you do have quite some items in there. So sometimes it might be difficult to know, like, yeah, can I now, whatever this is here, can I link it on there? No, the indices, no, you cannot link it on there. You can clearly see that once you drag and drop it on there. Can I take flows on there, or can I no? So how can I know which one I can add to this visualization? Well, it says here, please add data, and this icon to add data. If you click on there, you can see that this is actually nicely immediately filtering out in a visual way on what is applicable for this component and what is not applicable. So I cannot add a booking on there, or there's nothing in the bookings currently in my system that I can add there. Elements, there is. So, and it is actually an element I want to add in here. So let me go for my DataMiner agent. Should be in there. That's an element, and I can drag and drop it on there. Okay. So note, yeah, this is by default maybe a little bit on the small side. So I typically immediately want to make this a little bit bigger by selecting the component. You need to make sure your component is selected, and then you see some component settings and layout options. So if you go to the layout, I typically want to immediately change here the style to large. So then I have a better indication there, like, okay, this is my my DataMiner agent that is selected as element. Okay, so without going into further details on the layout and the settings for now. So I added a visualization, and I dragged and dropped on there the data, which is an element I dropped on there. So now I can see that in the data section, you have two things that are added on top here. You can nicely see the data that is being used in the dashboards, all of the dashboard, the whole dashboard, and the data used in the selected component. So now I have this component selected. If I select something else, nothing actually, then you can see that the data used in the component is no longer there. So that's to make it easy to reuse data. If you have multiple components or visualizations you add, to each time use the same element, you can immediately find it over there and drag it again somewhere else on another visualization. Okay, so another thing I want to mention is my green icon is now here still available at the bottom. At the bottom. So at the bottom, whenever if I move my mouse over a component, you will find this bar here with some action buttons there. This one is there, always available to move your component if it would be difficult to grab it somewhere, because sometimes, yeah, you can grab the component itself, but sometimes it's difficult if there are other interactive things on there, like a trend graph, to grab it. So you can always grab it there. The next one is the data. So if you click on there, you can see what data is linked to this. So if I select this one, you can see that this is my DataMiner agent, the element which is selected, and I can remove it again. So if you ever want to remove it again, that's how you can do it. Now I have to quickly add it again, but my filter selection is still active, so it's rather quick. I can drag and drop it on there again. Okay, so that's how I can quickly add it again or remove it. So also if you select it, also here you can actually remove it from there. The visualizations, if I would not be happy with the visualization I chose, I can actually still convert it into another visualization, which is applicable or capable of displaying an element, because I still have that data element or that element, my DataMiner agent, selected. So I won't be able to select any visualization, but I can, for instance, select a state timeline. A timeline is a 24-hour timeline on how my element has been behaving in alarm state over the last 24 hours. Or there's here a visual overview. That's the graphical presentation. Maybe that's a little bit too small. I need to make it a little bit bigger. So if I go for visual overview, so this is live updating. I just move my mouse over it and it shows the graphical presentation, the visual of that Microsoft element. So a graphical presentation is also possible for an element. So those ones are the ones that are capable of showing something about an element. Now I don't want to change that, so I actually not going to change it. I'm perfectly fine with just the name. You can also duplicate the components if you would like to have more of it and you have some more info to go to the help and see more details in our docs there. So that can also give you some more help and context there. All right, so far so good. So what did I do? I took a visualization and I added an element on there, more specifically the element state LED. It's also possible to do it the other way around. And let's just delete the component once again. And maybe I don't know yet how to visualize things, but I do know that I want to visualize something like the name of my Microsoft element here. And so I drag and drop my data on there. And then it says like, oh, you need to pick your visualization. And then I can go to the visualizations and I see again those different visualizations that are applicable to a element, like the state and the visio that we have been looking at. So I can go for state and then I have again my name of my Microsoft server. But as I mentioned, I rather have the default actually on large to make it a little bit more visual. Okay, so I have it back by going from the other side, from the data side. So either you know how to visualize it and you put it on there and then you put your data on there, or either you know what to visualize, like the data, you put the data on there and then you choose the visualization. So it's a personal preference if you go from the left or the right. Both are perfectly possible. So either I go from the left or either I go from the right. That's the same thing. Okay. Now, what I also want to mention is that this icon there leverages you to filter your section there. I've mentioned that that's still possible while you already have selected something. If I click on the data, it shows the data, but it now also filters again. If I want to put something else on there, that is still working with that hover over as well. Okay, and the drag and drop will indicate where you can drop items and where you cannot drop items. We already experienced that in our demo. Okay, so I was able to create quickly just some visualization and some data source on there. Now I want to make that a little bit more dynamic by going for some data from the user, because currently my dashboard is showing the name, and I can add some more components in a minute. It's showing the name of my DataMiner agent, but actually I have like 100 of those servers in my system. So I want to create a dashboard where I can select the Microsoft server and it will show all the details about that Microsoft server. So therefore I need to get some data from the user. So we're going to add a drop-down component, an element selector to our dashboard so that we can leverage that and ask the user what to show or which server to show the details about. So how will that work? Well, we will add a drop-down component, we will attach some data to it, and we will now need to use filtering. So that's a new thing we will experience now, how to use that filtering. So let's go back to my dashboard where I added my name of my Microsoft platform. And now I will go and add a little bit of interactivity to it. And the interactivity is here at the bottom with some basic controls, more specifically the drop down that I will choose. So I take the drop down and I drag it and I'll drop it here at the top, maybe to the right hand side. I will align it, make it a little bit bigger, and I have the selection box there. Now, what will this note? If you want to quickly check the result, just go and out of that editing by clicking the stop editing. You can check it and immediately click start editing again. So this is a very easy, quick thing. Just click once, click again, and you can quickly have a peek on how it looks like. So how does it look like now? Well, rather empty, because my drop down, I just added it, but I didn't attach any data to it. So it says, please select data. Okay, what can I add? Well, let's click on it, and then we will see that in a drop down we can actually add a lot of things in there. A drop down with any kind of thing we have in there, if it's services, if it's views, if it's elements. Yeah, elements, that's what I need. I need elements. So I can just take those elements. I don't really need to go into one specific element, so I can just take all of the elements and drop it in there. And what will happen? If I take a look at it, it opens up the drop down. I have like nearly 1500 elements on there. So all the elements of my system are now in that drop down. Okay, that's nice, but I'm creating a dashboard here to visualize information about the Microsoft server. So I rather have this Microsoft server to show all the Microsoft servers. Well, therefore, you now have something additional that appeared here in my action bar here at the bottom. Next to the data, I also have now filters. And if I click on filters, you will see that it will again highlight what is possible to be selected as filter in this current scenario here. And it's just like protocols. Well, actually, yes, that's what I want to do. I want to filter on a protocol, and not just any protocol, but I want to filter this drop down onto the Microsoft platform elements. So I'm going to search in protocols for Microsoft platform, and I will take this Microsoft platform. And you can see if I drag it, you now have two things. Yeah, if I would add it in the data, you will only have a drop down with only one Microsoft platform, or the Microsoft platform protocol in there. I want to filter the data that is in the drop down and only show Microsoft platforms. Okay, let's check it out, what the content is now. Now I have 20 elements, and I can see server 1, 2, my DataMiner agent is in there, the one that I currently have been using, some VOD servers. So now I do have a nice list of 20 of my servers I have in my system in this list. So that's a good drop down that I have there. Okay, so that is perfect. That's how I created the drop-down. I added the drop-down on there. I linked it with all the elements, and then I filtered on the driver that I want to use in my dashboards. Okay, so far so good, but now I need to use also the drop-down selection as a filter on my components that I have in my dashboard. So here I have the state component, which is kind of like hard-coded, linked to my DataMiner agent. How do I do that now? Let me show you with a new state component. Let me add a brand new state component on there. Make it again a little bit the same size. Okay, now I need to select data. And if I click on the select data, I can, of course, still go to, where are my elements, to my elements and select an element from there. But I also have here components. And that's an interesting one, because here I need to be able to select my drop down. And unfortunately, my drop down is not in there yet. So let me have a quick refresh here. So I need to select the this one and the components I was. Now it is there, so I had to do a quick refresh there. So the drop down that I created before is also here available. And if I open that up, you will actually see a drop down has a selected item, and it has a selected item from the elements, and I can use that to display it in there. So I'm not hard-coded, link it to a specific element. I link it to the drop-down, to the selected item in there. And if I now take a look at it, you can see this one is now linked to the 21 Trends quick link, but let me maybe select another one, the Microsoft Server 01. And in meantime, I will make it a little bit bigger again, the large layouts. I love the large layouts. So now I have this first one is hard-coded, linked to the my DataMiner agent. This bottom one is linked to the drop-down that I have here. And if I select in the drop down, of course, my DataMiner agent, it will also show the same thing. So it eventually, it both shows the same thing now, but the top one is hard-coded linked. The bottom one is linked to the drop down, and I made this one a little bit more dynamic. Note, I could have also changed the linking on that one. So here I can see that this one in the data is linked hard-coded to my DataMiner agent. I can throw this one away, and I can take the new of the elements again from here, or I can also now take it from here and link it on there, and then I would have the same thing, but my layout changed again. So let me go again for large. I love the large. So now they are both linked. I don't need it twice, so I'll delete one again, either of them. So that's how I can create a user selection and link it to one of my components there. So if I want to add another component on there with, for instance, that state timeline, let's play around with that. Let's add a state timeline to it as well. And let's reposition that a little bit to make it a little bit like a line underneath my DataMiner agent. Can I make that a little bit smaller? Yes. And now I need to link that also to my element. So remember that you do have the data used in your dashboard available here in this top section. So again, I will go for the drop down selected item elements. That's the one that is already being used in the state component. So the state timeline, I will also have the same thing there. Note, it does indicate in the tooltip that this is the last 24 hours. If I select the component in the layout, you do have also the possibility to specify there like state alarm state of last 24 hours to make it a little bit more clear to the user what we are talking about here. So now I also added this alarm state of last 24 hours here. And this is dynamic. So if I go to Microsoft Server 01, it shows me the Microsoft Server 01, and it will load the alarm state timeline of that server. Server 2, and my DataMiner agent, and those are probably monitoring the same server. Okay. So that's how I created a drop down into my dashboard, linked it to the elements, filtered on the Microsoft platform, and I have two components which are now linked to the drop down. Okay. So let's take a look at maybe before we go into GQI to further improve our dashboard a little bit more with some more components. So having a quick look at some of the components, for instance, a text component, if you just click once, it immediately adds it on there. Could be interesting if you want to add, for instance, a title on top of your dashboard. So you can add something there, and then within you can see the text is still missing. So in the red section here, settings, text is missing. Yes, so let's my server dashboard. All right. You can see in the layout that I might need to maybe center that. So in the settings and the layout settings, I can have some more things like, for instance, let's make it a little bit bigger as well. And yeah, that's already nice. And let's maybe also take a look if I can change the style, for instance. Let's go for customizing the style and changing, for instance, while we are playing with it, the background color to something like a little bit more bluish. Something like that, for instance. So just to show you, you can also easily customize the layout or the style of this component as well. So maybe I can make it a little bit more like that. Okay, that it's evenly spread out. So if I stop editing, I already have a nice dashboard there. Now I want to add a little bit more to it with some other real-time data. So let's take another look at some of the real-time data I can add. So I can add a progress bar or a GOG. So let's maybe add this one, drag and drop or just click, make it a little bit bigger like that, for instance. So if I want to add a parameter to it, I can just go to the parameters and yeah, be aware if I gonna go for a element and then search for my element, yeah, which one do I need to choose? My DataMiner agent, then it's again a fixed link. So I want to start from that selected element, but I cannot take an element and drop it onto an LED bar or a progress bar or a GOG or anything like that. So how can I do that? Well, in order to do that, you need to, let me select, yeah, maybe we'll get a tip here. If we select this one, we will see that, yeah, you cannot link it to the component dashboard. You can only link it to the parameters. Okay, so yeah, I'll have to go for parameters then, but then I won't go from element, but I will actually go from protocol. And if I go from protocol, I can say it's a Microsoft production kind of parameter that I want to choose. For instance, under the performance page, I can find the total processor load, and I drag and drop the total processor load on there. Yeah, okay, it's going to show me the total processor load of a Microsoft platform, but which one? Well, now I need to take that drop down, and you can see if I take that drop down, we have a filter there. We need to use that one and drop it on there as a filter, and now it will not take any processor load of any Microsoft server, but it will take that one filtered down to the one that you selected in the drop down. So now I select my DataMiner agent. If I go and select another one, like the Microsoft Server 01, it will effectively show the details of that one. How can I prove that? Well, actually, just a quick peek in our layout options. We do have also the possibility to show elements there. So you can see now it is effectively showing it from Microsoft Server 01. And if I change it to Microsoft or my DataMiner agent, again, you can see it's my DataMiner agent. By default, this kind of graphical presentation doesn't show the element name because you typically have a dashboard where you have the name a little bit bigger at the top, for instance, and then you have a whole series of those important KPIs that you want to visualize. You don't want to display the name each time on each KPI. So that's why by default it is not being shown. But I just added to prove my point that this is effectively changing. Okay, maybe one more that I will add is a progress bar. If I add a progress bar next to it, I could do the same thing with a progress bar, but I want to show you something more, that I can drop the total processor load on there. But with these components, you can actually drop more than one parameter on there. So now you can see that the data used in this component here is the total processor load and the physical memory usage. So I have two parameters that are shown in there. From any Microsoft platform, I still need to take my drop down and also filter my drop down on top of that. And now you will see that this actually shows you two progress bars on top of each other. So this component and also the GOG here can actually, if you just drop more than one parameter on there, it just shows it next to each other or in a grid or that many rows, that many lines, rows or columns. You can actually modify that in the layout settings, or I need to select my component. Then you should have somewhere in the settings there. No grouping. I thought you had the possibility to modify the style. Anyhow, here the rows and columns layout flow. You have the rows and the columns maximum per row, maximum. You don't have it on this one. No? Here the layout flow, here it is at the bottom, I missed it. So rows or columns. So here columns, it's going to show it either next to each other or on top of each other, how it flows and where it goes. You can tweak that a little bit over there. Okay, so you can add more components on there and just have it flow a little bit like that. Now, another cool thing I want to show you as well is maybe I want to show a trend graph. So another component, so we already took something from the general. Maybe another one I can add, for instance, is a clock display, you have a clock analog and a display, digital clock. So you can add a digital clock there as well. So this is a clock I'm adding. I added a title already. I added some of those, state and state timeline and a progress bar and a go. I'll come back to the table. Let's maybe first add a line chart, because with those line and area charts, you can display a trend graph. And that's what I want to do, because I want to show a little bit of the trending of a certain parameter. And I have two options now. I can just take my total processor load again from, I already used it before, so I have it readily available, and the drop down. So now it filters and it will show me the total processor load of the selected element. Okay. So in the data, if I click on there, it's the total processor load of the Microsoft platform. And I do have that filter on there, the drop down. Okay. But actually, I can do something else. Let me remove that again. So I select a component and I remove the data from the component. I can actually link it to this component here, because this component with multiple parameters can also act as a kind of the data input, because I can select the total processor load or the physical memory or any of the parameters I add in there. So this component, if I click on the green button, I can link it to all kinds of things. Let me collapse the parameters once more. So I can link it to a component here, and I can actually link it to the go or to the progress bar. So I want to link it to the progress bar and to the selected item in that progress bar, because there are multiple ones in there. Oh, let me try that again. And add the trend graph once more. That's probably because maybe there's something lingering on the old data that I linked it to. Let me do that again. So I can take the progress bar 7 and add the parameters from there and drop it on there. And you can see that it displays the total processor load. Let me maybe stop editing, collapse this, that I have a nice view now. So I have my server dashboard. At the bottom, it is showing me the total processor load of my DataMiner agent. If I click on physical memory, it shows me the physical memory. And yeah, the trending, I only activated it just earlier today, so it's not a full 24-hour yet. If I select another server, let me go to Microsoft Server 01. I can also load the CPU load from that one, and the physical memory. This one already had a 24-hour trending activated for more than 24 hours. So that's how you can also basically select an element, but also select a parameter and use those two into that trend component. So the trend component is linked not only to the drop down with the element, but also linked to the chosen parameter using this selector. Note it could also have been a drop down with parameters. Now instead of a drop down with parameters, I already actually have like the current value and the visualization in that selector, you could say. So this one can also act as a selector, which is kind of cool. Let's go back to the editing. And let me add one more item there. So what else do we have? The tables. I wanted to add a parameter table as well. So I can add a parameter table there. And let's make it a little bit bigger. Just to show you as a quick example what I can add there. So I can add a parameter on there. Not from elements, but from protocol Microsoft, because I want to make it dynamic, of course. I'm not working with a fixed elements. And then I can take, for instance, as a quick example, the disk information. For instance, we have a table with the disks in there, and we can just drag and drop the disk on there. Remember to also link it to your drop down so that the element is selected, and then you will have for the Microsoft Server 01, it will load also the disk information. So I have my C drive. I can see how much disk space I have available. If there would be more than one disk, I would see a C and a D and an E drive in there, but this server only has one disk drive in there. So I could do the same thing for network interfaces or for a task manager or things like that. So it's just to show you that you can easily add a table in there as well with a lot of information as well. More visual overview. I already highlighted that one as well, but I think we have already a nice dashboard that we created. So we experimented a little bit with different components, more going from static components to a user selection that I filtered down. Those components are then linked to that drop down with different visualizations going into the parameter details, some trend graph, which is then also sublinked, you could say, to that Go selector, and a table that has been added, all dynamically loading the information from the one that I select here. Okay, I think that was a nice example that we have built here with some dynamic linking. Now let's take a look at that GQI. That GQI is short for Generic Query Interface. What is a Generic Query Interface? Well, that's a special section here available within the available data that is called queries. That's the generic query interface that is leveraged in there. So here you can create a query on any data source, and we'll take a look at that on how to do that, and do some kind of like SQL alike queries where you can say, I want to grab these things and I want to filter it, or I want to maybe select only parts of it or bits of pieces. I want to do a count on it so that I can summarize it, and I want to group it. So all of these kind of neat things are possible there. We'll play around with a couple of examples in these demos here. So first things first, when we are going to the queries, you will need to add a new query in there. When you add a new query, you need to click on the plus sign to create a new query, and you need to specify a name for your query. Once you provided a name, you can select a data source, and in terms of data sources, we can have a lot of different things to query on, or kind of like tables, you could say, to query on within a DataMiner system. So we can query the alarms in a DataMiner system. We can go to the bookings, or we can get the elements and for instance say, give me all the critical elements, because typically we want to filter on things and we want to limit our data sets on things that we are interested in. So we want to get the elements, or maybe we want to even get parameters and show some of the worst parameters in my measurements, so that I can pinpoint those on a nice dashboard to say like, watch out for these things. So I can have a lot of things to query on. Note, you can also start from an existing query, from another query. So typically these things output some kind of, like, you could say, a table, but the table can also be visualized then with bar charts or graphs. We'll play around with those visualizations as well. Okay, so the first one we will do is we will query a little bit on a specific data source, and when we do that, we will need to select some operators, which is indicated here. You can aggregate, and that's probably the most interesting one, to start aggregating things, making sums or counts, and yeah, column manipulations, as you can also add columns and have extra columns based on other columns, a little bit more advanced one. The filter is also a very popular one because we typically want to filter it down to the ones that I'm interested in. So I remove whatever is not of interest. Joining, we'll have one example in the demo to join two tables together. Sometimes that might be necessary. The table or the data source might have a lot of information, so therefore you might need to select only the bits and pieces you are interested in. And of course, you can also immediately sort it so that the ones that need your attention are at the top immediately. Or if it's a long list, I can also go for a top 10, for instance, so that the most important ones are only shown and I don't care about the 1000 others in there. So those are some of the items that we will also play with in our GUI that we will build. We'll build a couple of them. Here is an example, and we'll immediately do that in a demo as well. So what we will do here is we will go for a first example where we get the parameters for elements where, and you can basically read it as a human. So we get parameters for elements where the protocol is Philips DVS 3810, the version production. So we always use production version, of course. And the parameters we select are the audio output level. And we actually don't show, you can actually see the audio output level there. We actually don't want all of them. We only are interested in the ones that are equal to 6. Okay. Let's remember that example, and let's now do that in a brand new dashboard. So I'll put my dashboard where aside, and I'll create a brand new one. So in the training folder, we have our server overview we just created. We will now create a brand new one by right-clicking on the training folder and go for Create Dashboard, and I'll give it the name GUI Bert. So I put my name in there that people are aware that I'm playing around here. Okay, so I have my blank canvas again. So I will immediately dive into that queries. So I see it over there, queries. Let's open it up. It's rather empty here. So let's create a new one by clicking on the plus sign, and let's see what this brings to the table. So it gives me a new name. I set the audio, I'll give it the audio to give it a little bit a meaningful name. And the first thing I need to do is select a data source. So I can start from alarms, from bookings, from elements. The one that I want is from the parameters. I'm interested in parameters, the audio output level I want to show of all my elements. So if I go for the get parameters for elements, where, what can I choose there? There's only two options. Profile definitions, we don't really worry about that at this stage here. We're going to go for protocol, and the protocol that I want to filter on is the, I'm going here for the Philips DVS 3810. That's the one we have been using a little bit before, where we were playing with the audio output level. So I have a bunch of them which are on 18, and some of them are on 6. So that's quite easy to work with those. The protocol version is always production, always use production version. And actually, if I go down, I can then select the audio output level. And actually, I'm already far enough to start visualizing this a little bit. Because when I'm building a GUI, I always like it when you can immediately see what you're getting, and then you can further tweak it. So let's just for a moment take a step back and let's take our audio. And you can stop editing at any point in time by clicking there on the done. So now what I did is I created one query, the audio query, and I can further edit this one again. Note a query. You can open it up and you can see what will be returned in fields. So it will return the audio output level and also apparently the element ID. So if you click on the arrow, you see what it will return. And if you click on the pencil icon, you can further it will load again and you can further tweak it. I selected the audio output level, but maybe I say like, oh yeah, but let me also go for that LMB1 supply. We were playing a lot with the LMB1 supply, so let me add this one as well. Okay, I close my edit again, I'm done. If I open it now, I will see that I will have it's reloading and querying the DMA again. Okay, so I now have two fields, but that's just showing fields. Let me just close it. What I want to do is I want to visualize it. Let's drag and drop it onto our canvas. So I drag and drop my basic query that I created onto the canvas. And what kind of visualization will it suggest me? Let's click on the visualization. Well, the bar chart will play around with that. We need numbers, of course. We don't have a lot of numbers yet, so that probably won't make a lot of sense. What is typically the best way, it's typically used to populate tables, and it's good maybe in the beginning to start with a table to see what the actual data coming back before you put it into a bar chart, for instance. So let's go for that table and let's make it a little bit bigger that we see what we are doing here. So we can see that we do have indeed the element ID and the LMB1 supply and the audio output level. Well, okay, let me go back to my query and open it up again and further edit and tweak this a little bit, because maybe that selected parameters, I did add that LMB1 supply there, but let me see. I want to move that so that it's on the correct position, and maybe I can also just as a quick example also add like a left, it was a left test level that we previously were playing with as well. So let me maybe add this one as well. So that's 3 parameters that I now added, but I am only interested in the ones that are in my example. We filtered then on the audio output level, and we only want to visualize the ones that are on 6, because you can see we have a long list of Philips devices, but we actually only want to visualize the ones that need our attention, and that means that is the ones that are, for instance, if my servers that are too high in CPU load, the receivers that have a bad signal or input level, so those kind of things we can filter on. In my case, I will, for instance, go for a filter, but on the audio output level, so let me just next to the selection that I did, I will now add an additional component in my query that filters, and I want to filter on which column here, because I already have 3 columns. Well, I want to filter on the audio output level, and then I can say I want to filter if the value is equals to 6 or greater than or less than. Just as an example, what I will do, I will go not equals to 6, but I will say less than, let's say for instance 12, everything which is less than 12 I want to visualize. That's actually the same thing as 6, but just to show you, it's not necessarily an exact equals to. You can also go for something like if my level is too low, or if my CPU load is too high, or if the bitrate is greater than. All of these things can be used as filters. So now I filter down my list and I only show those receivers that require my attention according to the filter that I added here. Okay, so that's perfectly fine. Now I have more or less what is in the slides. I added some additional parameters to it, a left test level, an LMB supply, and I added that filter on there, a little bit different, not equals to 6, but less than 12. Same result. But that element ID bothers me, of course. That element ID is not something which is quite human readable. So therefore, I want to, of course, replace this element ID with something which is a little bit more human readable. Well, the problem is that whenever we query this data source, we basically are querying the parameters, and a parameter only has a reference to an element in the most robust way, you could say, which is the element ID, because an element name can change. So we need to make sure that this element ID is now combined with the element name, and the element name, we can find that in the element list. So therefore, that's already a little bit more advanced. We need to immediately do a join. So we need to join this table with another table. So we need to join. And yeah, there's different ways of joins, doing an inner join, left, right, outer. I would say go for inner, and 9 chances out of 10, it will be a good one. And then I can select with which data source you want to join this one. So I will, of course, want to join with the elements. I want to get the elements and join it together with the element ID here. If I'm joining with the elements, I will need to specify how the match happens between the two tables, and that is defined here. Well, the element ID is the common thing, so the left and the right, I need to specify the element ID on both sides. And then on both sides, the element ID will match and it will combine. You can already see that it will combine the two together. What is happening now, of course, is that a whole bunch of other fields that I'm not necessarily interested in are also being added. The protocol, the alarm template, the trend templates, the polling IP. So all of these things, I'm only interested in the name. So therefore, I do also have the possibility to make, to select, to do some select here, but I can also, yeah, let's do a select here. And not just only take the element name, the state, start, stop, I don't worry about that. The alarm and trend template and protocols and polling IP can be gone. But there's one more that I want to add. That is the let me search, alarm state. The alarm state. There you can see if the element is in alarm, critical, normal, etc. So that's also an interesting one to take from the element table. So I'm not only taking now the name of the element, but also the alarm state. Those ones are all in normal, so that's all perfectly fine. Okay, let me do also then at the bottom you can see that you do have quite some columns still with those IDs in there. So I don't really worry about those IDs. So I can do another select here and then just remove the element ID there and remove the element ID there. Let me see if that works out. And maybe I want to move the element name a little bit more up front, so that I have, let me maybe move that one there. So now I'm reorganizing a little bit so that I have the name, the state. That's maybe nice to have the state next to the name, I have the feeling. Oh, it's a little bit fiddling around. So the name of the elements, then the alarm state, then the audio output level, and then the left test level, LMB1 supply. That doesn't really matter. You can play around with that. So I now have a nice overview of the name of the elements, the alarm state, that audio output level, a couple of key parameters that I selected into this table. And I'm only interested in the ones where the audio output level is less than 12. it's because I have many of those elements in my system, but I only want to show the ones that match a certain filter there. And my filter was the less than 12. Here it is, audio output level less than 12. If it's like a CPU load, another thing you can do, or a bitrate, you can also take the top 10. That's also an interesting one. Instead of filtering on an exact value, higher than or lower than, you could say take all the servers that are running higher than 80% CPU utilization, but you could also say, give me the top 10 servers that are running the highest in CPU load. You can play around with that. Okay, so that's, I believe, already a nice query we built here with a nice overview of all of my elements that are matching a certain query there. Okay, so we did combine that with that inner join that's also mentioned in the slides, because in the first go, we actually took it from the audio output, the parameter tables, you could say, and that only has a reference to the element. Therefore, when we did that, we needed to still add that inner, wrong button. We need to add that inner join with getting the elements, and then also selecting. I added some more like the alarm state as well, so and we matched it on the element ID. So I added some more columns from the elements, also the alarm state, and some other parameters as well. Okay. So now let's take a look at some other GQI examples as well, because I do want to add some others. So let me close the editing of the first one that we added here, the audio one. Let me add another one. The next one I will add will be one that is going to show me something about alarms. So I'll just call it alarms, and maybe I'll respect the casing. So the data source that I will be selecting is get alarms. Before I click on the get alarms, you notice that there is also a ad hoc data. Ad hoc data source, well, that's a special one, because that allows you, if you select that one, to select an ad hoc data source. And the ad hoc data sources we have here are basically automation scripts. And we have some of them on here, and those are actually because we added the alarm report from the catalog on our system. So because we added that one, it came along with some ad hoc data sources. So what is an ad hoc data source? An ad hoc data source is whenever you need the data, this dashboard will trigger an execution of that automation script. That automation script will execute and fetch data somewhere and return it. So whenever I need it, it's fetching it and it's returning it. Where does it fetch the information? Well, it could be from any data source in the world. You could basically say it can take it locally from the DataMiner agent and already do some pre-processing on there to give it return it in a nice format. That's what's happening with those data sources. It's querying the local system and doing it pre-processing a little bit of the data. But the ad hoc data source can also fetch just information somewhere from the internet or from another database or from another file or whatever. It can fetch information from anywhere. So that's a very powerful ad hoc data source, but it leverages automation. So we'll see a little bit more about automation in the next series. All right. So I'm going to go to alarms, as I mentioned, so I will get the alarms. And the next thing I want to do is, because, yeah, let's maybe do a aggregate. Because, yeah, let me just immediately take the alarms and drop it on here and pick a visualization. And the visualization is a table, okay? So what I will see is that, let me make it a little bit bigger. What I will see is that this list actually has a lot of data or a lot of alarms, and it's lazy loading, so it loads more and it will load more. And what I can tell you already is that it not only shows you active alarms, but actually any alarm in the system, because it just says alarms. So, and there is one column which is very interesting to filter on, which I will immediately do in just a moment. But just to show you, or I'll show you how to filter that on, making sure that it only goes for active alarms. So you need to filter again, and then I can filter on any of the columns. So some of them are displayed here, a limited set, but you will see in the columns that there is all the columns that are available on an alarm are in here. And the one that is of interest, you can also just start typing, is active. If you start typing, you'll find it quickly. It's is active. And then I want to say equals yes. I need to enable the checkbox. And then I will see that this list will update, and it will be a little bit shorter. It will only show the, sometimes it's easier to go into outside of editing mode to start using the list. So you can see this list is now a little bit more manageable. It has a limited number of items in there. It is now an active alarm list. Let me start editing again, because now I created a list of all the active alarms. So first it was all the alarms, also history alarms, which is kind of scary, because if I keep on scrolling, it will keep on loading alarms from the database. So I want to limit that onto, let me open my query in the meantime as well. I want to filter that on the is active, so that only active alarms are being shown there. So now this is an active alarm list, which is perfectly fine. But in this exercise, I actually want to make a little bit more of a bar chart per severity, for instance, and make a graphical presentation of how many alarms I have per severity. So I need to start doing some counts. So I want to count how many alarms I have in my system. So how did I do that? Well, I get the alarms and I filtered it on the ones, excuse me, that are active. Now I need to also do a aggregate, and within the aggregate, I can choose, I need to specify first on what I want to aggregate. Any of the columns really is good. Alarm ID, like a unique thing, is a good thing to query on, or to aggregate on. And now I can, if I would have, for instance, a CPU load, I could make an average. Or if I would have a bit rate, I could also make an average or a min or a max or these kind of things. In this case, with an alarm ID, I can only do like a count or a distinct count. So I do a count, so I can see that I have in my system 73 active alarms in there. Well, actually, I probably have not 73, but a little bit less. I have 70. So I quickly checked here, I have 70. Why are there 73? Well, I can already tell you that actually also some suggestion alarms are in here, the information. We'll see that when we get to the severity. Okay, in total I have 73 active alarms, including the information ones, apparently. But I want to break it down, and I want to see how many I have per severity. So the next thing I will do is I will click on that operator, and I will now do a group by. Now that group by is there, and I can group by and select any of the columns, which is going to be, I start typing in there, severity. So I can group it by severity and basically have that count split it up over the different severities that it will find. So I have 58 criticals, 4 majors, and I can see those 3 information ones. That's the difference between the 70 and the 73 I had, a minor and a warning. So actually, I could say, that information, that's not very applicable here. So I want to filter, and I want to say the severity needs to be. So this is a little bit like you talk, you want to filter on severity, and I want to say not equal. So I want to avoid the information. Okay, so now you can see it removed from my table. Now I have nicely all the ones that I'm interested in. Okay, now I kind of like got the alarms, started doing counts on there. Well, I got the alarms, make sure that I have active ones. Then I started counting them, and I grouped by severity, and I removed the severities that I don't want. And that's perfectly fine what I have here, but I want to visualize it differently because I want to make it a little bit more graphical. We can see that we have a lot of criticals, so I want to visually make that impactful. So therefore, I'm going to change the visualization of this component. So I click on the visualizations, and it already gives me some possibilities there at the bottom. So I'm going to go for that first one, the column and bar chart. So if I select that one, I will see that I do have those bar charts available. Let's have a quick look, because in the layout I can change that orientation, because I prefer to have it here, the orientation bottom to top there. That's what I would like to have. And I can also go for absolute values, so that I can see the 57 or 58. You can see the tooltip there. So I can see that those are 4, and that's 58. So that's perfect. So you can choose a note. I can, of course, do further customizations. Maybe I want to remove the legend because I don't really need that. I can maybe say add a title there, active alarms, or maybe I should say number of active alarms per severity. Casing is not very consistent, but there you go. So now I just added a title. If I stop editing, I now have a graph which is nicely showing me the information in a visual way with a nice title on top of that. Okay, so I added a query on real-time data there. I added a query on the alarms. Maybe I can add one more and open the queries section once again. And I'll do another query. And this time I will do a query on elements. Just make like a list of elements that I'm interested in. Okay, so I'll select and start from elements. Get me the elements. Note that it's convenient if you rather soon, you could say, take your elements or your query and drop it there, so that you can see what we are talking about and start modifying what you would like to see. The pick visualization I still need to do, and I start from a table typically as usual. Okay, I get the elements, and I have now all the elements that will probably give me the 1500 elements on this system here. Okay, but I'm not interested in displaying lists, although it is a quite interesting one. And remember, if you want to tweak the columns, you can open it up. You can see those columns here. So you can also edit and select then the columns that you want if you do the select query. But before I do any selects, I would like to have a little bit of an overview of how many are in a critical state for the different elements that I have here. So I will do another aggregate, and I will aggregate on the column alarm state, so that I can see and do a count on how many alarms, or how many that are in alarm for a certain alarm state. So I have 1500 elements in there, so it counts 1500 elements, but I still made a little bit of a mistake. I don't really need to aggregate on alarm state, because then if I now want to group by, what is the problem? The alarm state won't be available in here anymore, because I did a group by action or an aggregate action on there. So, or a count on that. So let me just take the element ID. I typically recommend to go for the ID column if you just want to do some counts on there. So let's do a count on there. The 1500 elements are there. Okay. So I get all of my elements and I aggregate on the element ID and I count how many I have elements. Now I group by the column alarm state. So there I have it at the top, alarm state. And now I will see I have 1500 elements, but how many do I have per severity? And I can see that I have 49 criticals, some normal, some undefined. Well, the undefined is again something I want to remove. So I want to filter and I want to say like the alarm state not equals to, I want to remove this undefined. All right. So now it will remove the undefineds. I can do, note, you can just keep on building these things. If you want to filter again, you could do it maybe with the regex, but I'm a little bit not so familiar with regex filters. So I can do once more a filter on the alarm states and filter again not equals to, and also filter out normals, because I want, because I want to focus this list on the ones that are of interest, which are the ones that are in alarm. So I did two filter actions after each other, not equal to undefined and not equal to normal. Okay, so now I have a nice overview of how many elements are effectively in alarm, in critical alarm. Before I was just showing the number of alarms, now I show the number of elements. But maybe I want to see also the protocols, which are the biggest offenders. So if I want to do that, I also want to then group by, let's see if I can do a, or no, I want to select, no, I want to, what do I want to do now? I also, let me think twice here. A little bit confused here what I wanted to do. I wanted to show also the per protocol, so I need to also then probably select. Let me check. I did have an example. Let me just take a look maybe at the example. Oh, we have here GQI examples. Let me go on that one. I wanted to build something there, and that's the query here at the bottom, or this table here, and I wanted to show how many are in a certain alarm state. So let me have a little peek here. Oh, so I'm selecting my elements and I'm aggregating on the element ID. I count, I group by alarm, and I group by protocol. I forgot to group by protocol after the grouping by. So let me retake my example there. Yes. Okay, let me go back to my GQI. My apologies. And let's go back to my table that I have here, and let's go back to my query. So I open up my query again, the elements query. Let's open it up. So I get my elements and I aggregate on the element ID, and then I do a count on the alarm state, but I also want to group by another thing, which is protocols. So that's what I forgot. Be aware, and this comes to an interesting point, if you have certain things added already and you want to go back and change something here, so I can quickly, where do I want to group by here, the group by alarm states, and then I want to do another group by. Well, after it, I do a filter. So I kind of have to like now remove the actions at the end to start doing something else here. So it is a little bit starting all over again, you could say, from a certain point. So I do need to remove my filters, and my select was not really something. So I do need to remove my filters. So I get the count and I group by alarm state, and now I also group by another item, which is the protocol. So I want to add also protocol grouping by there as well. So now I can see that how many of those were in alarm state critical. I had like around 50 or something like that. Let me scroll down to the, or let me filter it the other way around, because I have lots of undefines. So you can filter on that as well. So you can see now the criticals before I did this group by action. Let me just maybe remove this group by. Can I easily remove this group by doing this remove there? So let me go back one step. So I did the first group by alarm state. So I could see that there are 49 that are critical. And now I will add another group by, which is basically going to further break down that 49 by grouping by protocol. So I select the column protocol again. So you will see that 49 will now be broken down into several items, which is showing me the different protocols that are generating the alarms. Well, what I wanted to show here as well is I am grouping on several levels, but here it is then interesting to do something like group by. We didn't touch upon that yet, and that's why I definitely wanted to show this example, is if you have this kind of table and you do want to group those criticals together, that is possible. And you can see it at the bottom, actually, in my component, I now not only have data there and filter, as we saw before, but I also have groups. And how can I now group? Let me close my query. If I open up my elements, I can see that I have that alarm state and that protocol there. So I want to group on alarm state. Well, I can drag and drop alarm state on there, not in the filter, but in the group icon there. So if I drop it in that group icon, you can see that now it makes a group with the criticals, the majors, the minors, the normals, the undefines. So now these ones are nicely grouped together as well. Note that you can also do multiple grouping. So I can take also protocols and also group it on there, but that's not really useful in my example. So it's multi-level grouping is also possible there. So this way you can now nicely see together without needing to filter on the alarm states that which ones are generating the critical ones. So you can see that the Philips DVS 3810 is the biggest offender in critical alarms there. Note that I do have still, what do I have still there? The undefines, so I can still further query, edit my query, and open it up again. After doing all the counts on the alarm state and the protocols, I can now also still add a filter in there and say the alarm state not equals, do that once again as I did it before, undefined. Now the undefines are out of the picture as well, and I only have the normal active elements. Undefined, the alarm state is undefined if an element is not started, for instance. So we have quite some elements which are not started on the system. So that's how I can create a query. So I did 3 queries, a first one on parameter values, and I immediately had to do a join there with some filtering. I did a count here on the alarms, the active alarms actually, to show them per severity in a different visualization. And here I did yet another query on the element list to show all the ones that are in alarm, for instance. There I did some double counting on the alarm state and the protocols, but I did some grouping action on this one as well, still in a table format here. So those are quite some nice and interesting examples we created with the GQI here, showing you a little bit of the getting started with GQIs, because GQIs can actually go above and beyond, you could say, and in queries. The queries that I've seen already are sometimes going very far, but you already experienced here a little bit what is possible. Now, two more short things, components. I already did did it a little bit during the demos, but each time if you select a specific component, you have the layout and the settings where you can tweak those things. So if I go back to my first dashboard that I created, for instance, and I start editing, if you select a component, you do have the layout options where you can, for instance, specify, I specify to show the element name there. I can maybe remove that again because the element name is already there at the top. Let me maybe choose another one, another server with a nicer name. So my Microsoft Server 02. So I don't really need to specify that over there. But also more styles that I have been playing with can be done. All kinds of options. Depending on the component you select, you will see different items popping up in there. So the layout is something I was playing with the layout. For instance, on this one, I changed some of the background color coding. So that's the font and the title I played with as well. And some of them might also have certain settings, like for instance, the trend graph. Are you showing last 24 hours or last week? That's something, or last hour. And a whole bunch of other things like showing the average, yes or no, showing the min-max. All of these things is something you can go through yourself, or if you want to tweak something, make sure to have a quick look at those settings. Typically, you would need to find your preferences in there. So each component has its own settings and layout options. Make sure to have a look at those to give it a nice look and feel, and make sure that the correct data is shown whenever somebody opens up your dashboard. Now, who can open up your dashboard? We saw that we could create it as a private, protected, or public. Well, indeed, but we can actually take it a step further as well, because we have some more options in the permissions. Let me have a quick look at that. If we just take a dashboard and we right click on it, we can go to the settings. And we can see the name and the location of the dashboard, so you can further tweak that. But you can see that we created it as everyone. But I can do that a little bit more granular by adding, for instance, myself on there as the editor. That's okay. But I can add maybe some more people, like the administrators group can also do some editing if I'm not here. And everyone, I'm gonna demote them to more like viewer access, for instance. So everybody can now view, because protected, it's only myself that can change it. So if I'm out of the office and somebody needs to change something, so it might be good to have some backups there as well that are able to tweak your dashboards. So that might be a more solid configuration. So I could apply it like that, but I'll leave it on public. So take a look at those security settings to maybe have another look, because you don't really want people to break your dashboard as well. So you want only the persons that are knowledgeable about what you want to visualize with your dashboard to have access. So you want to maybe limit it down as well. So public is not always that good as well, depending on how much you trust your colleagues, you could say. Anyhow, I already did the exercise while we were going through the slides. So I think we already made some nice dashboards with some more examples and components on there with some GQI as well. So we basically already went through the necessary exercises here. So you can see in this Dashboards module, we went to the next level where we added more components, the full dashboard we created. We asked for user inputs to make it no longer fixed, but dynamically linking to my Microsoft. Even within the dashboard, you could select parameters to see trend graphs. And then we went into that GQI to really query any kind of data source and in a flexible manner, showing tables or graphs, bar graphs with consolidated counts data. And you can do a lot more with min-max sums and these kind of things. So you can already feel that there's a lot of power there in those dashboards, and we're still only getting to the tip of the iceberg here. But I hope I gave you some more information to further discover the dashboards functionality and create some great dashboards already. So I hope to see you in the next one.